in my lifetime, I've never seen a technology quite like this. I would say this is the equivalent of when websites became popular and people were deciding, do I need a website for my business or don't I need a website for my business? And now I'm hearing, will AI work for my business or will it not work for my business? In the next few years, AI will just organically be in your business.
So in today's episode, we got a really cool topic here. It's probably the hottest topic of the year, maybe even the entire decade, depending on where this goes here. But we're going to talk about AI. And it's really cool because I have a childhood friend, someone I grew up with, to be talking about this. He's one of the foremost leaders, you can say, in Canada. We have Jazz Babla here from Kelowna. He's a CIO and he's in the public sector, but we've actually started to do some work here in the private sector. And I'm extremely excited because he's got a wealth of knowledge. So for you out there as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you want to pay attention because the stuff that Jazz is going to share here is absolutely game changing. So Jazz, thanks for joining us here today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on your podcast, Pradeep.
Yeah, my pleasure. When we started talking about AI, I knew that you have a ton of expertise that I don't because I've been completely out of the loop here. But for people who are, AI just came by storm, right, this year.
Yeah.
And so maybe you can share a little bit about your background because I think it's pretty cool. You've been in this world for a little bit here.
Yeah. And so about, 14, 15 years in IT, I'd say about half of it in the private sector, half in the public sector. And just in the private sector, really learned a lot about how different types of businesses work supporting within their IT needs. Public sector, completely different, where you're supporting what's best for the citizen and providing those solutions. But recently, with this new generative AI that's come out, we've seen a shift in how information can be summarized, how information can be shared, how the experience that someone has with technology just is completely different. And in my lifetime, I've never seen a technology quite like this. I always, whenever I explain this to people, it's sort of like, what is this technology and how well does it work? I always say this is the equivalent of when websites became popular. And people were deciding, do I need a website for my business or don't I need a website for my business? And now I'm hearing, will AI work for my business or will it not work for my business? In the next few years, AI will just organically be in your business. And whether you like it or not, it's going to be in sort of integrated in every solution that we have. And this is an absolute game changer. And just to be at the forefront of it is quite exciting as well.
So the thing that I appreciate about you the most is you're not your typical techie, right? You're not just in there. You understand the real world implications and the applications of technology and AI. So every time you and I, Jazz and I, we have a conversation here, it's more impactful, right? We're not talking about the technical requirements. We're talking about what's the impact on people. So from your perspective and your experience, what do you think the impact will be? Why should business owners pay attention to AI?
Well, there's going to be phases of how this AI is going to get rolled out within an organization as, organizations become more accustomed to it. The main impact is going to be right off the beginning, the mundane tasks of data entry, of reading data, summarizing data, or creating sort of basic content. All of that's going to be all automated, right from the beginning, right to the end. And if you've got your processes within your business sort of well-defined, no matter which sort of vertical you are in your organization, the easier you will be to adopt it. It is going to be a repurposing of the workforce that we probably have never seen before. And it's best that organizations start to plan for it now. I mean, you're not going to necessarily adopt the technology tomorrow and shift, but you do need to think about, okay, if I've had, 20 people that answer the phone in my business, well, will AI be able to answer the phone in my business? So what are those 20 people doing? So you got to start thinking about what's that next sort of phase of workforce look like? And it's going to look a lot different than it is right now.
And what do you think people should be like? Today we're in 2023. AI just kind of came out with, kind of a whole, it's kind of like a tsunami, it seems like, right? Everybody's starting to talk about it. It seems like almost like a fad. Do you think that the conversation, it's going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger, or do you think it'll eventually kind of fizzle?
2.5 years ago, we started to recognize that with machine learning and AI, we started to see this kind of growth started to happen with the ability to take large sets of data and start to do predictive analytics. The multiplication of AI solutions that I've seen right now is something that I haven't seen in my lifetime. So be able to sort of say what I saw for the last 2 years, to see it happen within the first 3 months of ChatGPT, and then whatever happened the first 3 months to be sort of 3x in the next 3 months. And we're only 6 months into this journey with generative AI, is something quite remarkable. Just the ability for it to learn and to memorize how certain things like tone and bias, but then also be able to control that a little bit within an organization is important. But it is going to be something that will really learn how you work and actually be that AI assistant. So instead of, there's two trains of thought here, Pradeep. A lot of people think, well, AI is going to replace me. There's going to be two groups of people, ones that resist the AI and ones that will actually learn how to work with AI and do their job a little bit better. And for organizations, it's good to equip those skills now before it's too late.
And so, again, just in terms of your skill set, this isn't something you've been dabbling with over the last few months. You're a leader in the industry, in Canada for a lot of the work that you're doing. Can you give a little bit of a scope for the people that are listening? When do you started this world of generative AI or AI, and how much of a head start do you kind of have, or do you feel like you have?
Yeah, so maybe 2.5 years ago, there was the first real dabble for us is in the public sector. We're responsible just to provide, a safe environment for our citizens in different aspects. And one of the aspects is around flooding. So if you think about a city that, or a province or a state, or wherever you look at it, there's a possibility that you may flood, and you have all this data that tells you there's this much snow in the mountain, there's this much snow in the watershed, there's this much snow in the creek, there's this much snow in the lake, or the water in the lake. Are the chances that there are flooding? So when we started to bring that data together, when we started to tell that story, we realized, okay, so if you have 20 years of data, can you start to predict it? And even without generative AI, we had started to see a prediction line to say, if these outcomes happen, this happens. Now, it wasn't anything that we've seen in the last 6 months. And then we started to dabble a little bit more by taking complicated workflows. And so some of the examples that I can share, even though they may be quote unquote government related, easily transferable to other public sector or other private sector for that matter in your processes. Because if something complicated like building a home, and some of your listeners might say, okay, I built a swimming pool before, I built a shed, I built a deck, I built a home. And I just remember going back and forth. Well, we've now designed solutions to kind of stop that back and forth that we're going live within the next 6 or 7 months here. And that's going to completely change that. Something that complicated, if generative AI can solve that type of a problem, well, what could it do in the private sector when the problems may be a little bit more simpler?
Interesting. So what are some of the cool things, because you have advanced knowledge of some of the stuff that comes out prior to it coming out to the general public, what do you think are some cool things that are going to come out this year for business owners?
Yeah, there's two streams here. Number one is the ability for you to have this generative AI in your own environment. So right now, everybody thinks about ChatGPT. They go on, the website, and you're interacting with it. You see social media posts of people trying to get it to say things that aren't true, and you hear news articles and things like that. Imagine a world where the ChatGPT or the models that make ChatGPT only know your data. They don't know the rest of the internet, so they have no ability to build that bias. That's what's coming. So that's one of the first things that's coming. So if you've got a set of contracts, for example, or you're a leasing company and you have all these lease contracts, imagine the generative AI just looking at your set of documents and you're asking it questions without the ability to go into the internet to make up a narrative. It's only knowing your world. That's coming. The other part that's coming is AI being sort of embedded in every piece of software you use. So in the world of and a lot of people here probably use Microsoft Office to some capacity. I know that Google in their workplace is doing something very similar. But imagine you had a document, Pradeep, that was 10 pages long, that was a strategy document. And it was well laid out, and you've got all your headings, and you're asked, okay, I need to make a PowerPoint presentation to really sell this to the shareholders or to a business decision makers. just the ability for you to take that 10-page document and ask AI, can you read this document and make a 20-slide PowerPoint deck and take out the main points and actually lay them out for me? Just the way that I just said that and talked, and in the snap of a finger, it creates your PowerPoint deck within minutes instead of you sitting there trying to make one. That is what you're going to start to see with the generative AI. And that's not that far away. I'd say that's less than a year away, and people are going to see that natively built into your applications.
I think that's crazy. I think that's awesome too, because that's one of the biggest, for people in business. I know some people are scared because they're going to lose their roles or lose some of the tasks that they believe they're good at. But for a business owner myself, what you just talked about, that solution of having a proposal put together, a slide deck put together, man, that would save so much of my time because I'm putting so many of those together. And so being able to do that, I think is just going to accelerate business owners' ability to be more successful and do the things that we need to do. So this is really interesting, Jess, because when we work with business owners, one of the biggest pushbacks we get is they just don't have enough time. Right? Yeah. They don't have enough time because they're too much in the weeds or they're dealing with too much admin. Guess what, folks? Now, a lot of that, I'm not going to profess to be an AI expert, but I think much of that is going to start to go away, if not the majority of it. So now you don't have any excuses anymore, right? And now you have to focus on being a true business owner and an entrepreneur. So the skill sets, I believe, for business owners are also going to change. It's not going to be as administrative. It's going to be more strategic. From a thinking perspective.
And I think, Pradeep, I think business is going to be able to scale and take on maybe more customers and more work without necessarily relying on hiring people to do that. So if you've got a business and you rely on, 6 people to answer the phone and to take an order or take in, that sales intake or whatever that might be, and you're like, okay, well, I want to grow this business and I have to hire 3 more people to grow that business. Well, we've already tested it and we've already gone live with it where we've got AI voice answering the phone call based on the data that we wanted to read. And it can answer that phone call and have a conversation and actually intake a request 24/7, 365 and infinitely scalable. And so one of the stats that we've done, and we've done our research and we've got some research data from another organization, is the average phone call that you take as a business owner can cost anywhere between $8 to $16 on average. Some of them obviously a little bit lower if they're quick, 2-second calls, but most of them fall in there and some even fall higher. If you design your workflows properly and you have AI answer the phone call, the average is flat around 75 cents a phone call. And that's because you're not relying on an individual to answer the phone. You've got AI voice doing the first 1 or 2 tiers. The conversation is natural. And if you're thinking, well, are my customers going to appreciate that? Most customers just want their answer and they want someone to support them. And if that can happen with an AI voice, you'd be surprised how many people just accept it. You've seen the banking world, you've seen the airline world, in different sort of organizations, these large corporate organizations already adopt this technology and they're not losing customers. And so they've got that competitive advantage. Now with this generative AI and the ability to scale and not necessarily have to have, this massive IT budget, you can now build these solutions as an entrepreneur, as a small business owner as well.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing about it is that you don't need an entire development team. From what I'm understanding going forward, you're going to be able to be a small, let's just say the average business owner, and be able to have someone on your team that has some expertise in some tech that can develop these kinds of solutions. Is that correct?
Yeah, you might be able to partner up or you might need 1 or 2, but I'll give you an example of what this AI solution that we've seen sort of do. We had a very large spreadsheet of data, about 5,000 rows deep and about 40 columns wide. So if you're a business owner, you're like, yeah, I've got lots of those spreadsheets all over the place. And so we thought, okay, wouldn't it be great if we had an app where you could just edit this data with a proper sort of database that sits behind and the ability then to chat with it to sort of say, who has this or who has that if you've got a list of people. So we took this spreadsheet and we asked AI, hey, can you create an app? And I'm literally talking like this. Let's create an app, let's create a database, and let's make it chat friendly. And in 6 minutes, it had created an app that was fully chat friendly. And everybody has more than 6 minutes to make an app. So what happened if you had somebody spend a couple days on making an app? So something that you may have thought, oh, this is going to take 6 to 12 months to make an app. No. You're talking days to turn around and put something to market. And we've already done that. That's not a pipe dream. That's not a sales pitch. We've literally done that type of solution already. And so we're quite excited about the possibilities of what that means, especially for some of these apps and these solutions where you have this great idea in your head and you're like, oh, I wish I could create a piece of software that did this. Well, now you're going to be able to just talk and it should be able to create it for you.
Oh, that's pretty incredible here. So for you as a tech person, and on the strategy side, what are you focused on? Like, what do you see for yourself, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, there's different streams. Like, put the tech aside for a second, because I think there's lots of good technical knowledge, and we can definitely sort of provide that technical knowledge as well. There's a couple of things. Number one, what's really important, and it's really important to talk about, is really excited to actually, it's something so boring, but it's something very valuable, is the ethics of AI. So actually to be transparent with your business, your customers, and your business partners and people internally as well. What are you doing with AI? What are you doing with my data? How are you using AI? And actually putting it out there to share and be open about how you're using AI. That's very important. So the ethics framework around AI is super valuable as well. Our culture is a big part of this. If your organization is maybe slow to adopt technology, or technology is not looked at as the first and one of the primary enablers in your organization, you're going to struggle then with this generational sort of technology that's coming forward. And so that's important. And one of the things I've seen sort of all over the place, private and public sector, is a lack of that digital IT strategy about what is the purpose of IT, what is my customers want, what do my internal staff want, and how do I use IT and digital technologies to move forward? Because AI is just a very, very great tool, but it is a tool in your tool shed to help you sort of move forward. But that digital strategy is what I've seen missing in a lot of organizations, tied with the culture to support it.
Interesting. And I think in complete transparency to our audience, you and I have got into a business venture together in the AI space, and we've had some conversations, and it's pretty evident. And it's almost comical to me, because just seeing your level of expertise and how far you are ahead of many of other, you could say, technology leaders, it's important to, what came out of those conversations, if I'm going to sum it up, is the importance of strategy.
Yeah.
And I think you just nailed it, because digital transformation or technology, whatever you want to refer to it as out there for people, everybody has a different terminology. It's going to be at the forefront if it's not already. I think it's going to need to be from a competitive advantage standpoint.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go back to one of the original examples I gave is back in the early 2000s. If you're a business owner and you thought, do I need a website to survive? And a lot of them just said, no, I'm not going to need a website to survive. Well, those businesses didn't survive, because the rest of the organizations move forward. This will be in the same place. Your competitors were probably trying to rapidly introduce AI to just, first of all, remove people from having to sort of do those mundane activities, and to repurpose their people to do more meaningful work. That's where innovation starts to happen, when you have that capacity to actually think and be creative and not be sort of caught down in this churn of the everyday mundane activities. And when those corporations really start to adopt AI, you don't want to be left behind.
The other thing that I saw, and I don't know how accurate it was, but they typically show graphs or bar charts of how fast technologies are implemented and used by the general population, right? They talk about electricity, light bulbs, cars, for example, TVs, radios, and the amount of time it took a certain amount of population to get there. And what it showed, and again, I'm not sure of the validity of it, accuracy of it, but it showed that AI is far surpassing every other technology that was, you can say, utilized now. There's so many people out there that have just jumped on it and said, we're going to start implementing this. The everyday average person who has access to ChatGPT, I'm seeing use it as well, like asking questions. So it seems like the adoption rate is significantly higher for AI than other forms of technology. Do you agree with that? Do you see that?
Yeah. Yes. And it's not even, I've never seen a technology adopted this quickly in my career. And just reading in history of technology, it's taken so long to adopt certain things, not this one. This is a little bit different. And I think the world was so used to technology, and then they grabbed on to the ability for this thing for you not to have to program it as much as maybe some other technologies, but to be able to onboard it as sort of other technologies there. It's just vastly different. The other thing, Pradeep, is this technology here can significantly improve everybody's life in their workday, not just IT. You're talking about finance, HR, you got your procurement or purchasing teams, you've got teams in the sales area, you got all these sorts of teams that might be out there in your organization. To start their day, if you're thinking about your organization, how many people start their day by turning on their computer and using a keyboard and mouse? And if whoever those people are, I can guarantee you AI can improve their everyday workday.
Interesting. So the last question I want to ask you here, because we're going to have you on again for sure.
Yeah.
Because there's
100%.
so much, like you said, it's changing so fast. Okay, you got the open AI chat. Like, let's talk about what are the different AI platforms out there? Because there's like Google Bard, right? Is that?
Yeah.
And then there's Microsoft, and then I don't know who are the main players out there right now when it comes to AI?
So OpenAI is a very large company with different types of investors from like the SpaceX to Elon to Microsoft is sort of the biggest investor. They really got ahead first. They've been working on this for I think 5 to 6 years, and to sort of create this sort of this chatbot has been quite impressive. They've updated their search engine as well, and so now it's even the way we search is completely going to change. Instead of you looking up keywords and then reading a website, it reads the website for you and gives you the answer you want, and you can then go for reference. It's going to completely change how we even do search. Google is trying to catch up as well, and their stuff is quite impressive. And they've got Google Earth and Google Maps, so they can actually add a lot more functionality. And they've got so many eyeballs. So if you think about, Pradeep, your everyday life, and whether it's your kids or your business owner or whatever you are, is YouTube. Well, that's owned by Google. So you're going to see AI and sort of integrate that. Gmail. How many people use Gmail? And then you go on the list and down the road, you're going to start to see that. But you're hearing Facebook is coming out with their own, and they've got the metaverse. So they've got a reason to create AI, to create this new virtual reality world now with this generative AI. So you're going to see great things there. But you're hearing Amazon, Oracle, these large organizations really start to use these language models to move forward. Microsoft is definitely got the competitive advantage right now. They were first out the gate, and they were first to integrate it with tools that you use every single day. The amount of people that are listening right now that use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all these tools to have AI embedded in is absolute genius. So you're going to see that sort of them lead the way. But just like anything else where that new technology, someone's going to come and it's going to be a great race. We as the consumers benefit.
Either way, right? Yeah. So do you think that Microsoft is going to take a niche in the business process space rather than the everyday person, or do you kind of get a sense of what they're focused on? Because they must have a strategy.
Yeah, they're definitely focused on the small, medium, large enterprise business space, not necessarily the personal space. They've got their personal space with sort of personal email and things like that. That's fine. You'll probably see Google and some of these other platforms that has already got your attention in the personal space, leverage it. It's very hard to crack that personal space right now if you're a large sort of enterprise company, because Facebook, Instagram, which is the same, Snapchat, Twitter, all these organizations already have your attention. So you're going to see AI built within that. But when you transition to your business world, and which is most of the listeners here today, you're going to see Microsoft sort of lead the way.
And that's interesting because Microsoft owns LinkedIn as well, which is,
they do.
The business social media platform. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that as well. Just, I know I keep asking you questions. I got one last question for you, I promise.
Yeah.
When it comes to SEO, I'm not sure how familiar you are with that and SEO strategies and keywords. Obviously that's going to change. What do you think how do you think that's going to change for people out there? Because now, search results are based on SEO, right? Yeah. Keywords. What do you think is going to change as a result of that?
I think it's going to be more focused on content versus keywords, because you needed to present keywords in the world of SEO before, so the search engine can look at, if you got blog articles, you got web pages, you've got this content, and you're looking for keywords that are matched to these statements that people are making. Well, if you just put that aside for a second, if people are now conveying their thoughts or they're writing full sentences on things they want, AI is going to take that full sentence and actually try to match that content by understanding content as a whole. And so if you've got a blog article that talks about, I'm going to make boats because you sell boats, and your strategy was sort of keywords, well, your strategy is focused on Google, right? But 300 million people just decided to switch over to Bing in 6 months. Yeah, because Bing, what Bing does is you put in what you want to do, and you can put it in a full sort of sentence structure, and it brings content to you instead of a website. So you're so used to looking up and clicking on a website. Yeah. Imagine just content being fed to you and the sources of that content listed below, so you know where you're coming from. So now all of a sudden, generative AI is not looking for keywords. It's looking for that content. Well, you want your content to come from here right into that search window. Google will do the same thing. Like, it is a much better search experience. No one will necessarily want to click on your website and open it if the search engine is bringing content from your website forward. So the better the content is, the better the search results will be.
Wow, awesome. So that's interesting for me, especially in the marketing space, because that's one of the things I'm evaluating is blogs now. You know, how is that going to impact our podcast? So thank you for sharing that insight. So Jas, I want to thank you for your insight here. And like I said before, we're gonna definitely have you back on again.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and everybody here should just, maybe as a takeaway, go ahead and just try ChatGPT. If you haven't tried it already, ask it to write you a speech as a voice of a pirate, and it'll write a speech as if you're a pirate. And you just try whatever you want to try. This AI is really exciting, and everybody should try to embrace it.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna be trying out some fun stuff here between now and next time we have you on.
Yeah.
So thanks again, Jas.
Yeah. Thanks, Pradeep.